Hello and welcome back to my Simply Making series. Today I'm going to make, even though this isn't a cooking or recipe series as such, I'm going to make some Anzac biscuits, some very simple biscuits that save me having to go and buy commercially packaged biscuits. I mostly make my own biscuits instead of buying the packet ones. Not all the time, it's not always practical. You might be really busy at some stages and not have time, but most of the time I think it's healthier and cheaper and definitely good fun, and everybody seems to really like them. You can do simple ones, just easy things like jam drops or the basic sorry, that's a noisy car. Just your basic chocolate chip cookies or whatever, but today I'm just going to make Anzacs because I find they're very popular and also they seem to last a long time as well. You don't have to put them in the fridge, they store well. So you only need a few simple ingredients. Today I'm going to double the batch so that we're actually going camping tomorrow, so that there's enough for the other families as well, and I'll even give some to my grown-up daughter. She's here today to take home with her to her house, so may as well double it. If you're going to make some, you may as well make a lot. So here we go. Okay, this recipe is a classic that's been passed on to me from my mum, and it's very simple. So we need oats, sultanas, desiccated coconut, sugar, plain flour, butter, honey, and bicarb soda. So very simple ingredients. All you need is a mixing bowl and a saucepan to melt the butter on the stove. I prefer not to use microwaves where I can, but that's just my philosophy. Okay, so first of all you need 2 cups of oats. So you need a cup measure. And we're going to place all our dry ingredients into our bowl and mix them together, and then we're just going to add our wet ingredients. So pretty easy. So first of all, we just need our 2 cups of oats. I usually get the rolled oats instead of the quick oats. So I think they're better for you, less processed. Next up we need some sultanas. So I just keep my stuff in containers. It just stores really well and also keeps it nice and fresh. So once again we need 2 cups of that for a double batch. Bit of a messy cook today. After that we need some desiccated coconut. So you can buy this really cheaply, of course, from Aldi or whatever. There's usually the savings brands available so that you can save yourself a little bit of money. So just stuck together a little bit there. Once again we need 2 cups. So far we've got 2 cups of everything. It's going to be a big mixture to stir, but okay, so there we go. We've got our dry ingredients nearly completed. We need 2 cups of sugar. Now you can use whatever sugar you like, but I prefer to use the more natural type of sugar. So this is actually Rapadura sugar. It's a product you can often get from health food shops, etc. And it's basically your sugar cane juice dehydrated and not processed or removed. So all the minerals and things are still in there because the sugar is a whole sugar. So that's what I try and use. The more natural, the better for me. And I know sugar is being seen as a bit of a demon at the moment. But I think you still need some in your diet. You really shouldn't be cutting it out altogether. But if you change the type of sugar to make it a better sugar, well then that's going to be good for everybody, and it tastes yummy too. Okay, so there's my sugar in. Once again we've done 2 cups of everything and 2 cups of my plain flour. So far all my dry ingredients have been 2 cups. My oats, my sultanas, my coconut, my sugar, and now my 2 cups of plain flour. I have used gluten-free flour in this in the past, and it turns out fine. So if you're gluten-free, you can always substitute with that. Any flour that you like basically can go into this recipe. I always like to wear my little apron when I cook. It always makes me feel very homely, domestic. Okay, so I've got all my dry ingredients in here. So now I just mix them around to try and combine them all evenly. Sometimes when you're doubling it, of course, that is quite a lot to mix in the bowl. So you could do 2 separate batches if you wanted to, but I'm just being a little bit lazy and putting it all together. If you see any lumps, just squish them out. You could even use your hands if you've got clean hands, like I've done that before. In fact, I probably will do that when I add my wet ingredients, just to make sure it's all combined nicely. And it's yummy to lick your fingers afterwards as well. So there you go. Alright, so that's pretty well combined now. You can see that you've got everything's kind of mixed in there. Okay. Next we have to melt our butter and honey in a saucepan on the stove and add our bicarb soda and water and mix it all together. So that's pretty easy. So we just need a small saucepan, which I've got right here. Of course, it's always good to use a wooden spoon when you're stirring anything on the stove. I've got my trusty wooden spoon. It says we need 250 grams of butter, or 8 ounces. Yeah. So I just have my simple scale here, and that way I can just measure on any container. And I need 250 grams of butter. I keep my butter out on the bench just in a little, because I use butter a lot, and as you can see I'm not very overweight or anything, but yeah, I think, yeah, it's a simple food, but I think it's actually quite healthy for you. 250 grams, well, that's not going to be quite enough, so I might have to get some more out of the fridge. Yep, nowhere near enough. I'll be back in a minute. I just find the yellower butter is always nicer. This is just the Aldi brand, and it's great. Really like it. So still trying to get 250 grams. So I'm just cutting off some butter. Need quite a bit there. I suppose when you're doubling it, and you don't want it to be dry at all, because if it's dry, the cookies the biscuits do tend to fall apart. So you're much better to have a wetter mixture than a dry mixture. Okay, that's about 250. Okay. So you can see I've got my over here, and I've got it in my saucepan. Okay, next we need our honey. So we need 4 tablespoons of honey. Honey here, once again, you could probably use a pure honey if you want to be really healthy. This is just a pretty basic honey from Aldi. I've got my tablespoon measure here, and I need 4 tablespoons of that. Dollop that in. As you can see, this is all pretty quick and easy, and really, but the ingredients that we're using are all pretty basic. What's happened? Sorry, my screen went blank there for a minute. So that's 2, 3, 4. So I'm just going to melt that on the stove while I get the bicarb and water ready. So I'm just melting that. Sorry you can't see me, but you can check out my pantry if you like. It's, as you can see, I've got a lot of Tupperware in there. And I tend to be a person who just keeps what I need in my pantry. I don't keep a lot of extra stuff. Okay, while that's melting, I'll just get my teaspoon of bicarb soda in my hot water. I'll just reuse the cup measure that I had before. So that's so I just need 1 teaspoon of bicarb soda. And I'm putting it into my cup measure. And then I need my tablespoon that's covered in honey at the moment, but that doesn't matter. And I'm going to get 4 tablespoons of hot water in with that bicarb soda. Just hot water out of the tap is fine. You don't have to boil the jug or anything if you don't want to. You might be able to hear my butter is bubbling away here and melting nicely, so it won't be too much longer there. Okay, I now have my bicarb soda and some hot water in there, which I'll just stir around and make sure it's all dispersed through there. And next, once that butter's and honey's melted on the stove, we just add it in and it will bubble up a little bit and make it nice and frothy. And then we just add it to our dry ingredients and that's it. Then we just need to get it onto our baking trays and into the oven. So it's a pretty, as I say, a pretty easy and simple recipe. Very cheap to make. Okay, that butter's because some of it came straight out of the fridge. It wasn't already out on the bench. It's just taking a little bit longer to melt, but it's getting there. It's nearly there. Just check it again. I do like to use natural ingredients like butter instead of something like margarine, which is more manufactured in a factory. At least butter comes from an animal. Alright, so now we're ready to add our bicarb soda and let that froth up. Whoa, it's foaming up very nicely. Okay, you can see it's got a real foamy texture to it now that the bicarb soda's been added, and it makes a funny noise too for some reason. Once the bicarb's in, it changes the noise on the saucepan when the spoon hits the saucepan. Must be something to do with chemistry, I'm not sure why. Now we add it to all our dry ingredient mix that we mixed up earlier. And now we've got the job of mixing all that in together. So we want to get right down to the bottom to get all that dry mixture. And I have been known in the past, if it doesn't look wet enough, to add just a tiny little bit of water, a little bit of extra water, just to make sure it's nice and moist, so that when you make the balls to put on your baking tray, your little cookie balls, that it sticks together well enough, that it's not going to just crumble and fall apart on you. But yeah, you've got some good carbs in here, haven't you? You've got some oats, and I suppose you can make your plain flour a little bit healthier if you wanted to use a wholemeal flour as well. You got your rapadura sugar. You've got some good sultanas and the honey, and altogether it sort of makes quite a healthy biscuit. No preservatives, no colours. I always think you're better to know what's in your food. If you're making things from scratch, then you know exactly what's in there and you can control it. If you buy that packet from the supermarket, you can't control what sort of sugar they use. You can't control what sort of flour they use. It's like it's made for you already, and you can read the ingredients, but you don't always understand them fully. So this way you're in control. You know what you're feeding your family, you know what you're putting in your body, and it's good fun as well. Okay, so you can see that is mixing, that's sticking together really well now. So when I make my balls, you can see that it's hanging together really well because there's plenty of moisture in there. So I'll put that to the side. I'm a fairly clean cook. I do like to keep my kitchen clean as I'm going, so I'm just going to give my bench top a little wipe off. And then we'll roll our balls onto our baking trays and stick it in the oven. Carnage with the honey on the bench top, but pretty clean. Really doesn't take long. Sometimes the thought of doing something is actually harder than actually doing it, isn't it? The thought of spending the time making cookies instead of going down to the shop and buying them, it just seems to be a lot of trouble. But really, when you get down to it, it's not hard. Okay, I'll just turn my oven on to moderate heat. Use 180 degrees Celsius. And I've got my baking trays. Probably because it's a double batch, I might need to do 2 lots of these eventually. So I'll just put them there on the bench top. Well, actually, I've got a third one here, so I may as well see if I can fit the whole lot in one batch in the oven. You don't have to use baking paper. I try to save on resources where I can, but I do like baking paper. It just seems to make life a little bit easier when it comes to cleaning up and things like that, and you don't have things sticking to the pans. So yeah, I'll just use some simple Coles baking paper. It's just the same, you know, like the cheaper brand. And now I'm ready to roll my balls. It's always good fun if you've got someone to help you do this, of course. And you simply, yeah, you can use a spoon or you can just use your hands, but of course I've got clean hands, so. So I'm not very germ phobic either. I tend to think we fuss a little bit too much with germs and making everything perfectly clean. I'm not into using a lot of disinfectants and things or antibacterials all the time. Yeah, I wash my hands and I always make sure I'm careful when I'm using any kind of raw meats or anything like that, and make sure things are kept in the fridge, and that if the benches have been used, that they're wiped down very carefully and all that sort of thing. But I certainly don't believe in over-sanitizing our lives and washing your hands constantly. I just don't think it really helps anyone. I think your body has got to build up a certain natural immunity from your environment. Just think about the days that kids used to be outside and they were basically eating dirt and eating all sorts of things, and quite often had healthier systems and were able to ward off many of the diseases that seem to be afflicting our population these days. It's yeah, I think there's a certain wisdom in letting your kids get a bit dirty, you know, and not always telling them. We've got family that, you know, every time they come over and pat our dogs, they say, "Oh, make sure you wash your hands." Well, you know, we don't get sick and we pat our dogs all the time. And we don't always wash our hands after we've patted our dogs. But, you know, we think we're healthier for it, and we've got pretty good immune systems that have built up over time. So, yeah, but that's another subject, I guess, is the whole over-sanitizing things. Yeah, it's also good for you to use your hands for things, I think. To get your hands into the garden, into the dirt, outside, and actually use that tactile sense a lot more. It's good for your health, good for your brain. Sorry, I'm looking a little bit scruffy today. I've been at the beach and with my daughter and we've been swimming, so I'm really not groomed as beautifully as I should be for making a video, but we needed biscuits. This was the perfect time to do it. So these will be ready for after lunch. We're having a pretty late lunch. It's like after 2 o'clock here, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we still haven't had lunch, but that's what happens on weekends. Sometimes you have a late breakfast and then you have late lunches after that. It all follows suit, doesn't it? So we're going well with this mixture. It's pretty good. I've filled 2 trays so far. Anyway, what I might do, because I'm sure you don't want to hear me rabbiting on for too long, is I might stop there and get these into the oven. Now, once you've got them in the oven, they only just need about 10 minutes. You don't want to overcook them because, well, some people like a really crunchy cookie. I tend to like mine to be just a little bit chewy still. There's a fine line, so you've really got to find out what's a good amount of cooking for your particular taste. But normally around 10 minutes is good, but you might get them out at 10 minutes and go, nah, they're too sloppy, they need to go back in. So you just suit yourself. So, nice. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to leave you there. Well, I better wash my hands before I turn this video off, I guess. Stick them in the oven for 10 minutes and voila, we have biscuits for the afternoon. So hang on a second, I'll just wash my hands and I'll be back to turn you off. There we have it. So they'll go into the oven and they look fantastic. They'll spread a little bit. They'll be a good big cookie, and I hope everybody enjoys them on our camping trip tomorrow. And yeah, join me for another video in my Simply Making series, because I think it's always better to make things from scratch. Okay, thanks very much and bye-bye.